Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and, with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Everybody, and welcome to Nightlight. So glad you are sharing your time with us tonight in this busy time of the year with all sorts of stuff going on. It's nice to take a breather every now and then and just sit back, relax, and get entertained by other people. So Mark and I are really glad you're here tonight. I want to thank first our Ken Quiethawk, who did our intro for us. You can find him at nativestorytellers.com. He and his wife have an amazing website. Please do check it out. And Mark has an amazing guest online here tonight for you. We're really, really excited to have him with us because his book is a fabulous book, and I have yet to be able to get into it, but Mark has swallowed it whole. So he is the expert tonight for sure. So I'm going to let Mark introduce him. Hi, Mark. How are you doing tonight?
Fine. Hope you and everyone had a nice, joyful Christmas, and everyone will have a happy New Year.
Absolutely.
Well, so, might as well just get started. We have a lot of information to cover today. So
why don't you sort of give a little explanation of what's going on, and I will check and see if our guest is in the queue.
Okay. So what's going on? So I thought Yins, like Sherry, like to know I'm back. Wasn't technically fired again after these singing bowls nearly broke the internet and caused the Pompano Beach mermaid to nearly go into seizures, but I'm allowed back on the air after attending 10 days of intensive cultural re-education classes. Barbara is going to be doing a show on Monday. Yep. I may be doing a research project next Tuesday. So I may not be here, but the following Tuesday, I have a college professor who will be covering prehistoric climate change on the 14th. And, we have a lot of new guests and just published books coming out that are going to warm up your winter. And our guest is here. We have had a couple shows recently that examined South American historical mysteries. Joan Conover had her Ancient Canal show, and the Road to Ruins guys, Rob and Dave, covered their recent trip to Guatemala. Tonight's show is going to be a captivating conclusion to this trilogy. our guest will link information from a few other shows we've done over the last 6 months. Barbara and I have really been looking forward to this show for the last couple months. Alex Chionetti is our guest. Most of our listeners are already familiar with his work. He was a consultant for the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull movie, and he was an assistant producer and consultant with Ancient Aliens for a couple years. Alex will be discussing his just published book with Inner Traditions entitled Mysteries of the Teos Caves. Hi, Alex. How are you? And happy early birthday.
Whoops, wait a minute.
Okay,
try again. Yeah. Try again, Alex. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for having me here. Yeah, and it's I know you were very hard to get me tonight, and I am here to answer all the questions and tell my story and talk about my books and make new friends. Yeah, and answer also the questions of the public too. No, I think you have. And open lines. No.
Yeah. We might have some people call in. I know. With the posts I put, the banner I put out for the last few days, I've had a number of my friends are like, "Oh, this sounds really neat." I'm going to be tuned in. So Matt and Sherry and the regulars are here, and they're really intrigued by your story. So let's start talking about your book. And it really is a captivating story, and
yes, indeed, yes.
Yeah, in the first modern documented exploration of this mysterious cave system comes from an Italian explorer in the 19th century. What was Salvador Festa's observation?
Festa was the first one who passed through the area, but he didn't descend. And after was another general, Proanio, who was kind of exiled in the jungle. When you are in the military, and in that time, in 1900s, and also in this century, they send you to the jungle. They send you to Orient when you have a bad conduct or you make a mistake. They used to send that far out last bastion, the last edge of life and death was the Amazonian jungle, either in Peru or in Ecuador, no? And it's,
that's where I got sent after the
but Festa was a naturalist and a traveler. He was an Italian. Yeah, the Italians were great explorers in the 1900s all over the world. Yes, and they also visit the Andes and the jungles. Yes, Festa was not the only one. And after, in the turn of the century, in 1900s, was this general who was in opposition to the one president who was a tyrant in that time. It was a kind of very difficult leader, and after he confronted him, he was sent also to the jungle, and he described the entrance of the cave and considered this place as secret for already the Indians. In that time, they used to call the Jibaros. The Jibaros were the custodians of the place yesterday and today. But now we call that ethnia the Shuars. Shuars and Achuar is the anthropological ethnographic group, no? We call today. And it's in the 1960s, the cave of Cuango was explored, and we could say discovered by Janos Morix in the expedition he did in 1969 with the sponsorship of the tourist office of Ecuador after being several years before and making another big discovery in another area of the cave systems with my friend Julio. But my story is very personal. I am the last of the chain of characters in this story. That is, I decide to finally write my book and finish my documentary, who took so many years, almost decades, to conclude. No, but this story is part of my life. That is has been more than 30, almost 40 years with this story, and I think. And when I immigrated to the States, I brought it, and one of the first intent when I was living in California then was get financing to do an expedition and a documentary about the place, but nobody really cared. And for years I tried to convince National Geographic, Discovery, and Travel Channel, and everybody ignored me. And unfortunately somebody copied my story and was a program in Travel Channel a couple of years ago, and now it's Discovery again. But that my mission was, bringing to the American audience the mystery of the Tayos. That was, I think, in some lines, I was following an invisible design to be ambassador of this new mystery, who now is kind of it's a very well-known story. No, after a decade ago, I did a segment, I produced and created a segment for this kind of best rating show called Ancient Aliens. But something I regret, but they didn't really take the story with the respect but at least it's well known now. Sharing that was difficult, but I think I have been journalist all my life, and I am a communicator, and I like to share the good things to the good people.
That was right. How Saul learned about this
the caves,
metallic library and the caves. It's from one of those Travel Channel shows, and then I saw the book was coming out, and it was like, we're doing that book, and it was really a fascinating read. So
thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
And when Morix rediscovers this cave in the 1960s, let's
yes,
look at
I said
geography.
But the story, the cave was already known, but nobody descended. Until now, we have only a glimpse, kind of a hint of the underground war. The story, let me resume. It's kind of the system of caves is between Peru and Ecuador. For many years, we have only kind of a rumor. Was a secret cave with the Shuar Indians, the Jibaros, pilgrimage a couple times a year to recollect these oil bears. Tayos is the synonymous of oil bear. This kind of birds who live in the darkness. They're almost a bat, but in the bird family, and they use this eco-sonar to navigate. They are nocturnal. They go to feed outside of the cave systems, and these caves, they are not only in Ecuador and Peru, they are also in Venezuela. From Venezuela to Argentina, we have these kind of caves with these oil birds, and that kind of legend connects with the genesis of the Indian Shuars. With one of the first legends talk about these two brothers. They get lost. They were kind of following, descending to the cave, looking for the birds, but suddenly they were confronting a lion, a jaguar, and one of the jaguars, they were two brothers. And it's funny, but in the Genesis of the Andes, we have also the first couple, also in Peru, they were two brothers, no? Who came also from underground. That is near the empire of the Incas, near Cusco, no? And the brothers Ayar was his name. But we have a similar in the Shuar Nation, and these brothers were kind of get lost, and finally one following one of the birds escaped from the cave, no? And that created all that kind of mythological genesis. But beyond that, until the 1960s, Morix is a foreign person. He's a Hungarian. He immigrated after surviving the Second World War. He immigrated to Argentina in the 50s. He met in a library looking for the theories of the origin of man and the trans-navigators. He was following with my friend Julio the theories of Florencio de Basaldúa. Florencio de Basaldúa was also Basque, as Julio Goyen Aguado, who met Morix in the National Public Library, and looking for the same book of Basaldúa. Basaldúa wrote, he was a foreign diplomatic, he was an inventor, he was that Basque genius, but the Basque is a mysterious nation with a very ancient history, with very strange language, which is totally different of the rest of Spain and the rest of the Iberian Peninsula, the rest of Europe, no? And the language is connect with more ancient things, connect with the Etruscans, connect with the language of Aymara and Quechua Aymara, imagine. And either Basaldúa and Morix, they were looking that unity of the ancient war, the connection of peoples, nations, and empires connecting in our kind of ancient sacred past, and how this was connected with the West. And Basaldúa was very kind of expert in Hinduism. He was ambassador of Argentina and India, and he wrote a couple very visceral books on the ancient culture of the Pacific as Lemuria, Mu, and he called the Red Race, and also trying to analyze too, and analyze kind of the connection of the Pacific with the Native Americans, and using the etymologies, using the semantics, and finding connotations between ancient language connected, no? And for example, between the Basque and the Etruscans and American language, Indo-American language. But Morix and Julio followed that step, and also he wrote a book, kind of a novel, in the turn of the century, who was also kind of a voyage to the center of the earth, talking about an intraterrestrial civilization who was part of these ancient civilizations, no? And this civilization was in the Andes. And triggered by this, they continue that traditional studies, and it's when Morix decided to continue exploring South America, but underground. He studied the caves in the Andes of Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, and in the mid-60s, finished in Ecuador. And in Ecuador, he will detour from kind of in a very mysterious way after he meet this group of Colorado's Indians called the Sachilas Indians. And he met this kind of chief of the group. And these Colorado's Indians are called, but they paint the head with a kind of a groom, very thick groom of red hairs, no? And it looks like more red faces, no? And the head too, kind of this gel. And when Morix went there, suddenly he started to talk in his native Hungarian language, it's the Magyar language, and they understood perfect. They said, "What is this?" And also on. And when they discovered he was looking some kind of, they saw some image they have about a secret bird, the bird Turul, who is a secret bird also in his stem and in his heraldic. And they said, "Oh, but this bird is similar to the ones in the caves in the east, in the Orient." I said, "You should go to this area of Morona, Santiago, where these birds are venerated, and they are kind of followed by these Indians, the Jibaro Indians." And when he followed that intuition is when he discovered this this system of caves and organized an expedition. But when they descend to the caves, they found this kind of amazing underground city made by megalithics and blocks, cutting blocks with perfection, no? And
right.
polished ducts, polished ducts and tunnels. And according to the lawyer of Morix, who was part of that expedition, said, "We descend to the subterranean kingdom," and that was the perception. No, the perception was different of a direct experience with a geological war and geological anomalies. And from then was not any geological research until 1969, no? But in between, 1 year before, Morix with Julio in an expedition which is financed by the Mormon Church, but nobody knows, but either everybody keep it in secret, no? And we know the tradition of the Book of Mormon talk about this angel Moroni descend to the earth in the 1800s and give these gold plates to Joseph Smith, the genesis of the Mormon religion, no? And these plates with hieroglyphic symbols, with Smith decode with these special crystals called the Tumin Urim, who are also names of Inca names, no? Very strange, no? The story of the Mormons. And this happening here in upstate New York, in the Mount Cumorah, is the place of contact. And as Smith have witnessed what they saw the place, and for several months he translate this another version, the other testament of Christ, as they said, and all the story of the Americas, BC, you know, it's totally kind of another different account of civilizations before Christ, no? And all this kind of very controversial story. That is the reason the Mormon elders, they get interested in the story of Morix and Julio. Julio was Mormon growing up, but he was not totally kind of, I think, very close to the faith when they decide to do this expedition. But he never told me the story. I have to travel in the year 2000. I traveled especially to Salt Lake City to resolve the mystery, and finally, I found there when the vice president of the Mormons sent me to meet Elder Jesperson, who was a fantastic person, and he was the American Mormon who helped the expedition of Julio Morix. But Morix doesn't kind of decide, don't bring the two Mormon elders to the cave where with the Julio they have the experience and the finding of this lost metal library. The metal library is supposed to be a big kind of cache of metal scrolls lost in time, nothing to do with the Jibaro Indians, nothing to do also neither with the Padre Crespi kind of collection in Cuenca. For some people, think it's the same, but Padre Crespo is another. It's a Salesian who also was contemporary of this story, but he died in the early 80s, and he collects many artifacts from that region. It's not too far from the area what is the Cave of Tallos, and he have a big collection of metal scroll with some until today there are undecipherable that you cannot really decode. There are undecoded. And well, some are fake, some are authentic. The main ones are by the central bank, and the others are still rotten there in the basement of a church called Maria Auxiliadora. Knowing the Salesian church is very strict and very snobby respect to the story, considering it's kind of bunch of tin cans and not important material. But coming back, I think I try to make a resume. It's not easy to tell the story. That is, I said, I'll recommend to all the public or the listeners, take a look at my book. But I analyze step by step. To tell the story of Tallos, I have to take several hours, but it's not easy to kind of condense. But it's a story of a archaeological discovery. I call the more difficult detective story, archaeological detective story for any challenge. What took me so many years in the making to trying to resolve as being part of the story, being part of the last friends who were witness of this fantastic discovery.
And Alex, what you just mentioned, the point of your book is to tell the story of the caves, and you are doing that through various points of view. Like you said, the archaeological. You cover the folklore, and one of the
I attacked the tiger for all the sides. Yes.
That's what you, and the Morix's journals and the reproductions of French newspapers, interviews with them. But one of the really interesting aspects that you introduce is the various languages found on the metallic library, and Morix thought that it resembled the Magyar Hungarian language with which he was familiar. Can you explain the languages or how the language was presented in the book?
Morix was not the only one either. There were other group of, you have to situate the Hungarian. The Hungarian was also a very advanced culture as part of the Asian, the Huns, but it's between Asia and Europe, no? And there are the heritors of big baggage from information, knowledge of the past. 1,000 years behind, going to the right is Asia, going to the left is Europe, and of the map. And they were linguistics. They were also scholars from before Morix, who already start to do analogy between ancient languages. And they found may be the origin of the Magyar language, who was also very isolated, very different of all the Slavic language of the area. I said, you cannot, if you talk the Czechoslovakians, they cannot, or the Polish, if they talk with the Hungarian, they will understand, and vice versa, no? The neighborhood countries, no? For example, or the Russians, or etc. But if you go in time, these scholars, they were connecting the Americas. They thought the Magyar have origins in the Americas. And also Morix, he only wrote one small booklet, and the title of the book was the American Origin of the European Nations. And also some scholars, they were thinking, as we were talking in the beginning about the transnavigations, the transatlantic primordial cultures have before the Egyptians and the Sumerians, maybe they were connecting Europe with the Americas. And that previous scholars to Morix, they were talking about this possibility that this from Central Europe, from the Black Sea and from the Mediterranean, they navigate to Americas, and this ancient Asian group as the Magyars, they originated the American cultures maybe 10, 20,000 years ago. But we have two. Also Morix flip and the story and back again, and he considered the mother race was the Americas, was the Amazon and were the Andes. And in that also we have all this kind of corroboration of the navigation with Thor Heyerdahl that come later to talk about America navigated to the Polynesia, and they left statues in Fatuhiva and in the Easter Island, using the first, also the current, the Oriental people, Japan and China, were coming to the coast of Ecuador. We found it in the Valdivia culture, and 1,600 years ago. We have similarities between traditions, ceramics, no language, but we found it in the textiles, and we have the lotus position of Buddhist type of migration, and also, from the coast of Ecuador and Peru, using the return of the current, going to the west, no? So the war was, what sure many other researchers talked before me, and about Columbus was the last one, to arrive to the Americas, no? It's kind of, that kind of thing. But I don't know, what was the other question?
You meant, you answered it about the Magyar language, but you were just talking about the Polynesian culture, and that sounds a little fantastic. That thousands of years ago there were trans-Pacific crossings, but if you look at the evidence of just the chicken populations of Asia and like the Andes, it's like the same bird. You don't find that same chicken in England. So it seems like there was some explanation for why you had the same animal found in just two isolated countries. That does suggest that there was trans-Pacific crossings between the two
and
countries at some point.
Transatlantic and Trans-Pacific, right?
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, it's and you do mention that there was a proto-Asiatic migration to Ecuador.
Protoculture, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. There were the scholars, and there were also the people with the Morix was in contact in that time in 1900s and 1930s and 40s, and also he have connection with this group of a German thinker we connect to with the Nazi Germany, the school on the group of Anneherb, but that is not an evidence, final evidence. Nobody really researched that lost years of Morix then, but we know the Horviger group, and they have all these geologists who were interested in the ancient Americas, as Bellamy and Allen and Otto Rank and many others from that period who were connected with this search for that lost power of move the rocks, and have this technology. That is also converged, that mystery we have in the Andes of all these pre-Incas cultures who have the technology to lift, cut, dissolve the rocks and move it from one place to another. In the case of the cave of Cuangos, Tajos Cuangos cave, we have these structures, these monoliths, these cornerstones, these polished kind of passages and tunnels, who shows a different technology. It's not natural formation. It's not only erosion of the water of the rivers. No matter the area, is a very fluvial, erosive terrain. We know the water produce very capricious forms with limestone, with andesite, and all this karst. The karst is not too difficult to create, but when you have kind of a big 500, 1,000 tons monolith dividing one gallery from another and supported by cornerstones, as you could see the pictures in my book, that is a kind of an architecture, it's an engineering, it's a premeditated thing to create a kind of underground shelter. I don't know, but in the 1976 we found some burial place, and it's a very mysterious how people descend to the cave, but it's a very difficult descent, these caves. There are more than 120 caves of Tajos. It's a maze, it's a labyrinth, and we have been exploring only 2 or 3 in the last 50 years, 40, 50 years. And that is the challenge. And only in this Congo cave we have these anomalies, we found this underground city. In the rest, we have some kind of polished levels and mesas and tables, but no concentrated as we see it in the one explored and rediscovered by Morix and also my friend Julio, and also who was a place where the expedition of 76, which was one of the bigger expeditions in the history of the speleology, of the spelunking, not only for the natural wonders, but also trying to get finally the clue and to take over the famous metal library. And our astronaut Neil Armstrong was the character, the unusual invited guest to be a captain of that expedition. but the purpose was another one, and the purpose was take over a fantastic kind of treasure and bounty. We are fortunate that it was protected by Morix and Julio, and they didn't reveal the final location of the place, and it's still waiting to be rediscovered too. Yeah, but by the selected ones, we could say that. Yeah,
well, that's a good way to look at it.
The chosen ones, right? The chosen ones. Yeah.
Okay, we can go with that. But there is this, world famous legend of El Dorado. It's the legend persists. We don't know where the city of gold was located, but people are been captivated by that for hundreds of years. Spanish explorers are looking for it. It seems like it's based on something like Atlantis. There's someone saw something at some point, and it just became part of folklore legend. Could the Taos Caves be, or in the metallic library, could all that be some remnant of the El Dorado legend?
No, yeah, your question is very good. And when I start to study the conquest of America, and I start to study the myths and the legends, I always was fascinated by before and after the arriving of the Spaniards, but also I was interested to follow that expeditions of the early Spaniards, from Cortés to Pizarro, from Pizarro to Alvarado, to Cabeza de Vaca, to Núñez de Balboa, and who enter in the Amazonian region, looking for gold. And I remember the concept, and the concept also, connect with the story of Tajos and connect with El Paititi, the legend of Paititi. Well, Dorado, we don't know exactly the genesis, but there are two versions. El Dorado as a city, as a lost city, and also as the character who used to bathe himself in this lake in Colombia called Guatavita, La Laguna Guatavita, the Guatavita Lake, and the Incas and Chibchas from that area, they used to throw offerings in gold, and the king was kind of navigating in this golden kind of barge, and maybe burial there. And that he used to kind of cover himself with dust gold as after that ceremony and submerge himself in the lake, That was this chief. They called him El Dorado too. And that legend was multiplied in many areas from Central America to South America, Central and South America. There were all these flashes, this, as they call, the ghost of El Dorado, They were kind of rumors. There were rumors. Always beyond was a nation with gold, and the gold, was very rich in these Mesopotamian rivers, alluvial gold and veins of gold inside of the hills and mountains, And it was a reality there, and it's a reality today, But still, the mining is a big kind of greed who kind of make governments to raise and fall and also betray their own Indian nation, as has been succeeding and has been happening in in the Andes region as Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Chile, and Argentina, and Brazil, and Venezuela, and Colombia, all the map, no? And this kind of Venus bring to the Spaniards to go and challenge from Amazon women to find some places. But when you were going to the east, to the Atlantic coast, was not too much gold. The gold remains in the eyebrow of the jungle, and the gold is also in oil. You find in these caves, you find search of petroleum, of the black gold. No? Mm-hmm. You have the green gold and the black gold, and that is in the traditions, and is in the today in the confrontation between mining companies and ancient cultures and regional kind of ethnias. But yes, El Dorado was a real legend. We know there were golden mines. We know Atahualpa, he hid his treasure. And Juan Morris was looking too. He was part of him. He had a search of gold. And in his search, after they decide to kind of protect that metal library, he make a big discovery. He discovered the Cumbaratza and Ambija mines, who were also ancient mines, who were kind of, he rediscovered too. So it's not totally his original, but the Spaniards knew about these veins of gold. And unfortunately, after he discovered, the people start to talk about, and they invade their properties. They invade his mines after he was working and exploiting that site for 2-3 years, several years, and big tragedy. His story is big tragedy. But Morris discovered two of the bigger, richest sites, and he lost it, and he died in total poverty. Yeah. He died in total poverty. He didn't have enough money for his own burial, no? But he left a fantastic legacy and a kind of a very hidden secret mission to protect the past from the looting. Very initial character. Is when you see it through my book, I try to dissect his personality, and his personal tragedy, and it's many explorers have this tragedy. One of the other explorers I follow in my research was Percy Fawcett, and Percy Fawcett was looking also, an ancient civilization who built and they carved cities on the rock, and he followed another ghost of El Dorado, but the ghost of Atlantis, we could say, no? No matter many anthropologists don't like to talk about Atlantis, but Atlantis is a reality. It's not only a romantic thing, but it's a reality. And we know legends are based in true. Yeah, we have layers of history and we have layers of myths. And sometimes both, they converge together. And Fawcett he knows, he heard that kind of rumors going to the west of the jungles, going west of the map of the Mato Grosso, of Brazil and Bolivia, and he was expert in the measurement of Bolivia, and he was a geographical explorer, but he was also, he had as Morix and other researchers, he have this kind of call. He have a call of this from the past. He have a call to kind of fulfill a mission to connect with this also underground world. But Fawcett knows, and he said it's kind of an advanced city underground. That is, his search for me connects with the Tajos Caves and connects with Chachapoyas kingdom. And I have the privilege to be friend with another great explorer. His name was Jean Savoy. Jean Savoy was an American born in the state of Washington, but he immigrated to Peru. He was a photographer, but he kind of accumulated a record of discoveries of ancient pre-Incan cities in the history of archaeology. And being only a photographer, nobody recognized the archaeologists back after he discovered the places the universities went, and they claim his findings. But Jean was looking for these kind of legends, talking about a culture who was coming from the east and entered to the Amazon, entered to the Orinoco, and set in these high mountains between the jungle and the Andes. And that was the kingdom of Chachapoyas. And they were fair-skinned people, more kind of light face, light skin, light eyes, connected with the legend of Ophir and the mines of Ophir. And they create also, these cliff-hanging mounds, very unusual, almost inaccessible boreal places to connect almost with the heavens, no? And then this kind of encapsulated sarcophagus will remind the Egyptian one, no? And that is a connection with Egypt too. A possible thing, they were the ships of Ophir who disappear in the Mediterranean and show up in the Americas, no? And that flashes of El Dorado connect with these two places, no? And modern searchers and researchers start to connect these kind of interconnecting lines with the past and the present. But the work of exploration didn't really found. For example, we were talking about the Atahualpa treasure. When the Atahualpa was captured by Pizarro, he's supposed to fill that room, no? But the room was filled until some level. But when the rest of the empire going north, going to Ecuador, but Cajamarca, where Atahualpa died and he was executed, killed by Pizarro, is in Peru, no? It's in one of state of Peru. The Tahuantinsuyo was a big empire, and that comprehend Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. No, it was very extensive, and the families of Atahualpa were in the north, and his brothers and cousins supposed to bring more gold. But when they were informed about the death of Atahualpa, they decide to toss it in the lakes and volcanoes. In another area called Yanganates, which had been also a place of search for many people of this lost treasure of Atahualpa, no? And the Yanganates connect also with Tajos, but in the area of Yanganates, a few years ago was found a totally wall with bricks, with a pyramidal wall, and with a very kind of intricate assembling of bricks connected. But nobody found yet that cave of the treasure after so many treasure huntings invading the area in the last half of the century, no? But that makes the sacred with the profane in many levels, no? And my story of the Tajos is telling more the story of the sacred, not only by the Indians, the Shuarts or the Jibaros, but also the search of Julio and Juan was also a spiritual search to connect and respect our invisible ancestry.
Yeah, Alex, there aside from these golden books on bookshelves, each weighed like something like 44 pounds, and they're all inscribed. Morix also reported that there were giants found in a gold cast, and their statues in this metallic zoo. I mean, this is like the reports coming from the cave after Morix's visits in the 1960s. This is like really extensive artwork and just something that really seems fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit more about the extensive artwork found inside the cave system?
Okay, 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, excuse me. I haven't.
Okay. Well, this has been some really interesting information. Barbara, what do you think?
Yeah, it's fascinating. You kind of hear stories of El Dorado and all of that, and to actually hear somebody talking about it in a different way is really quite amazing.
Well, yes, I think I see it through the eyes of an explorer. I have been exploring the Andes. I don't base only my research in the books, no matter I like books, and I like maps, but I do it through my kind of recollection of the testimony, of oral testimony, and as I said, I am part of this story. But I have been friends with the characters. They were part of my life. Many people are writing very stupid things about the Tajos in the last 10 years. I have been since I did that segment on ancient aliens. Yeah, and you see the blogs, they get intrigued, but there are so much apocrypha elements. They come from imagination, no? They come from rumors and conspiranoid sides, no? Mixing the Masons with the Mormons, and mixing Neil Armstrong with the Illuminatis, or kind of my friends with secret missions, or Stanley Hall with the Secret Service, and also with this not verified. The story is complex, but sometimes it's more simple, and it's a kind of it's a story who trick the mind and the spirit together, and the search, and it's a kind of a grial, including when you talk to the Indians talk about almost neo-Christian symbols of the dove and the chalice, no? It's in an amazing way. You find the same European tradition of the grial in the middle of the Amazon, no? And that pursuit, that archetypical search, it was similar to Fawcett. Fawcett was looking another grial, and the grial is a lost continent, it's a lost civilization, and under the jungle and under the ground we have other life, other kind of I'm not talking about extraterrestrial mankind. I don't follow the von Däniken thing. Von Däniken did a lot of damage to this story. And when he lied in 1974 to sell books, and no matter many people venerate it today, Adon Erich, but not from my side, since he told me he had to embellish the story and said, yes, I descend to the cave, but no, he didn't see it. Yeah, the only two people see it, that 2 or 3 people saw that the golden gate of the library, of the lost library of Tajos.
Yeah. Alex, you just got to a point that I think we should talk about is this Morix's story got out. It is drawing the attention of Eric von Däniken. Maybe in a little bit we can get into a little bit more of the Mormon expedition, but how did von Däniken's expedition there?
No, von Däniken didn't make any expedition. No.
His book.
He was brought to one cave in Cuenca, but to take pictures. But he's supposed to offer money to get money from Germany in that time, or Switzerland, from a magazine, and he never delivered that thing. That when he's supposed to help to organize the expedition, he never really showed the money. Yeah, but he turned multimillionaire with selling the story of Tajos and publishing the photos Morix give it to him in that trip in the early 70s, and he was brought to one cave, and he's supposed to be one of the entrants, but along the territory of the different states and departments of Ecuador, there are many systems. As I said, the system of caves, they extend for several miles, 100 miles. Some caves connected with the other ones, but others they don't connect. And I hope with the new system, the use of LiDAR scanning, we could really resolve many of these labyrinthine caves. Mapping, a new type of mapping from the air. But Däniken said he descent supposed to be the one of the closer to the Quangus, but he doesn't specify. And he used the pictures of the Father Crespi, saying that cache of metal objects and ceramical and wooden carvings were found in the case, but that is still is a very legendary kind of white lies, more than white lies, kind of many gray lines, but he put it also in the map as von Däniken, as the book turned a bestseller. Everybody start to talk about in the mid-70s about the caves, and that attracted Stanley Hall, and Stanley Hall created that big expedition I was telling you before, and bringing the presence of our first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong. But was interesting too. But in 1969, when Morix was in the first official expedition, he was talking to one of his friends guides there who helped in the logistic, and he said the moon was full, but it was July. Yeah, it was July of '69. And he saw kind of a shadow pass through the moon, and we don't know if it was a touch of bear or something, a bat. And he said to the people around the fireplace in the middle of the darkness, the same man who is walking in the moon, he will come here. He have a kind of a prophecy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was very kind of very eerie, very kind of mysterious person with that kind of psychic view, no? Some kind of.
But it did happen just 7 years later, and with Neil Armstrong exploring the cave. You have a photo of him next to a stalagmite.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's bound to bring some credibility or validity to this subject to attract the first man who walked on the moon is interested in investigating this lifelong project that so many people had, including you. What did Neil Armstrong's visit add to the exploration of the Teos Cave?
How was I didn't catch one of your lines. What he thought about?
What did Neil Armstrong's visit bring to the exploration of the cave?
Well, it's the real story is Stanley Hall, who was from a Scottish origin. He was from Edinburgh, and the Armstrong, Neil was proud of his Scottish heritage, and he was a symbol of the exploration of the outer worlds. Stanley, he decided to use him as a symbol of the inner world. And he said, well, you are connected with my blood. And also the Scottish speleologists have a big majority in the scientific expedition, no, with people from the academies and science institutes from Scotland, no. And what Stanley was an engineer born there, and also he had many friends in the scientific community, no. That is, he have that power to put that expedition in 6 months since he decided, and still he was enthusiastic and he believed totally what von Daniken wrote in that book. It was a dream. It was a dream that could take. That is the hook. The Metal Library is a story where you could make a comparison with the Grail, no? It attract and that trigger our collective unconscious and our kind of inner desires and to kind of grab this kind of golden dream. And Armstrong was very enthusiastic to go to. If he liked to travel, he was already traveling, visiting countries after he put his steps in the moon. And he said, yes, yeah, I'm going. And he said his experience there, they have so much similar level to his emotions in the face of the moon. And he was really kind of, the 2 days he spent in the cave also with Julio Goyenaguado was a kind of a guide and a speleological assistant with another Scottish new friend, John Wally. They were kind of taking care of Neil, as you could see the pictures in my book, no? But there are unique pictures of Neil. They're not the classical ones of the stalactite. Who was the first one was released many years ago. But Neil didn't really talk too much. But I had been friends with his family, and I tried to convince him to give me an interview on camera a decade ago, but he said he would like to talk only about the scientific levels of the cave, but he didn't want to go deep. And he said, yeah, it's a marvelous place, but and he never shared it neither with his sons and with his family about what he perceived. They know, the family knows he went to Ecuador and he went to the cave, but neither have pictures of him in the cave. It was very, in all his memorabilia and all his heritage, I thought I was going to find some of special attention, no? But he was a very private guy. But he was very kind of enthusiastic, saying he was talking about life. And as we found life in the outer space, we found also a lot of different type of life in the bottom of the sea and at the bottom of the caves. We have all this kind of spectacular microbiological invertebrate life, and who are many kind of surviving in total darkness and reproducing itself, and many other marvelous of the biology of creatures who lives in the absence of light, no? No matter, the micro universe of the soil of the cave is very interesting, where you find all these kind of carpets of green and seed and plants created by the birds. The birds and the ecosystem bring the seeds, and they create all this kind of phosphorescent type of green emerald kind of landscape connected with the sounds. The Tajos produce this vibrational, constant hum, who bring you kind of to an altered state of consciousness where they are vibrating, and there are thousands of birds flying with you, descending with you, and also inside of the cave, and they pass very close to your head, but they never really touch it. But the ecosonar is very advanced, and it's kind of this, you could see the marvelous of the nature evolution of a species, no? Or maybe an intelligent design, why not? They're very kind of peculiar creatures, no? And it's similar to the ecosonar. They have the dolphins. You feel this vibration when you are in the waters with the dolphin, and you feel the vibration of the birds when you are in this dark placenta of the cave, this kind of a special womb, sacred womb of the earth. And it's you feel the cave is alive too, with these things, and between the marvelous species and the kind of the intriguing of the constructions and the lack of light and lack of oxygen can bring you to a different kind of state of consciousness. As many skeptics, they said, "Oh yeah, but this your friends Julio and Juan, they saw this library, maybe it was an experience, an altered state of consciousness, but no a real experience. But I know what Julio returned to Argentina in that first experience in 1968, during the expedition of the Mormons. And he was very emotional, and he told his experience to the wife and to the younger daughter, and he never talked again for years, for decades, and to his brother too. But I have to rediscover this 20, 30 years later as a kind of proof of testimony, of the same. Always, and that he didn't profit with this story at all, and the wife and the mother, his wife and his daughter, really, and the brother too, younger brother told me, he was very emotional when he talked only what he saw and never again. And he used to tell me very, very little thing, and we were going to have an expedition in 97, 98. I was preparing that. He said he was going to guide me to the place, and after we follow, as I explain in the book, we have to contact these elders, these Jibaro elders who knows, and they have to be escorting you to the side, to the right cave. And unfortunately, Julio died in another expedition in the Argentinian Andes before we could travel together. And that was the end of his line. But I have been continue researching after his death, honoring his work, and the book is kind of dedicated to his work too.
Oh, that you make that very clear, and might as well talk about some of the last parts of the book where you do make your own expedition to the caves. You see what Morix, you confirmed what he saw, and you do have these really interesting photos about those cut blocks, and you discuss the amphitheater and the stairs, but what did you see of such interest with those blocks that look like they were precisely cut?
Well, it had been a big challenge trying to to prove that, but had been already in the past and in the recent present, the skeptical geologists and researchers who trying to debunk the site as natural formation. But I remember years ago, Julio showed me the cornerstone, and he never saw it when he was with Armstrong in the cave. And I said, this is one of the pictures took in the expedition of 69. I said, but if this cornerstone is duplicated, it's holding the two sides of the entrance between galleries, that means this is an architectural element. And I showed the photo to many geologists and engineers and academics, and to say, no, this is not a natural formation. It's kind of it's a holding, it's an angle, it's a support angle. And fortunate, in the last hours of my third expedition to the area, and I was kind of rushing with I was with the Special Forces of Ecuador who trained me after 6 months trying to make the goal, but the area was very difficult. Now it's more easy after my lobbies and trying to open and convincing the shore authorities and the politicians to help to open to the tourists. But after I almost lost my life, I said, now any idiot could go to the caves with the permits, and you pay this kind of passport. And I don't know how much it costs, not too much, to support the federation. The Shore Federation, you could have access. That is the reason TV crews could go, and you see people without any efforts. You see that gates going there without any kind of suffering. But the geology is one thing. The architectural kind of details is another one. When was the bigger analysis in 1976, neither the team of speleologists or the team of geologists couldn't explain some of the features. Some features of the cave they could explain as erosion of the water, but others not, as the separation between one gallery and another, no, as was kind of drilling and polished after. And that always keep in my attention, no? And I still kind of, I am the first one who insists we need more research. So we need more comparative between these caves and the rest of the system. But the functionality of this kind of cuts is, we have anomalies. We have a staircase, we have quartz formation, where it's a kind of more solid rock, we have concentrical thing, we have this kind of different cut, monolithical cuts, I don't know, in a circular form, and a vertical, and rectangular, and kind of the use, we don't know, but it looks like they give you the sensation more than the corroboration of you are in an atomic shelter, in a nuclear shelter type of site, no? It's a kind of very, very solid rocks, and this kind of mining, kind of an old mine sensation, no? I don't know. It's a kind of depend on what you perceive there, no? So it's depend if we don't know how we could really prove or find more elements of measurement of this type of tunnels, but we know they extended for many miles, and they are very perfect, as you could see the photos in my book, no?
Yeah, they are perfect cuts.
Right, and the angular stone, I found it. The same picture that was intriguing me 30 years ago, I found it before the sunrise, and it's there. And it's one in the right and one on the left of the arc called the Juan Morix arc. It used to be called the Erich von Däniken, but the locals, as von Däniken lie, they decide to don't use his name anymore. and they rebaptize as Juan Morix. But you find it when you exit between this arc and the commando caves, you see the two cornerstones holding the roof. Yeah, that is element. And I found a lot of kind of elements of the columns, but I don't know that they were columns or they were stalactites. And I took a sample. Unfortunately, as we have to left the area, but we have a bad experience in the end, I have to throw many of the samples out. But the other caves, for example, we have another cave called the Chumbitayo Cave, to which I did 2 expeditions previous to the Cuangos. And the Chumbitayo Cave we found this kind of sculptures who assemble animals, and they are perfect kind of a sculpture. I don't know how old they could be, but one have a fish, kind of a piranha. The piranha is a local fish in that area, but this is in a stone. And also we found one who looks like a river dolphin, as a perfect silhouette of the river dolphin, who also is in this area of the Amazon range. And other form for birds too on the stone. And the more intriguing is, I call the reflective panels. It's kind of, there are inscriptions, rectangular inscriptions, not necessarily a writing scripture, but carving ideograms, very basic rectangulars carved in the ceiling of one of the caves, and they are covered with dust gold. That is intriguing. What you light it with your flashlight, and you have this kind of reflective, and it's gold. It's a dust gold incrustation in height. Unfortunately, it's not. In that time, I didn't have a drone to do an approximation, no. But the next time, I will do it. I send some of my followers, researchers who are bringing tourists to the area, but my friend Manuel never really followed my desire. Said, go to this part and to see if you could approach it with a better zoom or with a drone. As maybe that we have more geometrical figures or lost scriptures. Yeah.
But Alex, obviously, when you make your expedition, you're confirming what others documented, but you're not seeing the
before
inhabitants.
Before me were not too much the documentation. We have very limited one. Yeah, we have very kind of besides Stanley Hall, he spent several years in Ecuador and did that expedition of 76. And he tried also to decode, and he was following. After the death of Morix, he decided to back to another source, and the source, what I found, was a total liar. Was a military guy who said he was brought to this special cave with a special kind of treasure of objects, animals in gold and in ceramic and glass and different type of materials. But I get to the conclusion after knowing his family and the testimony of the wife, also that you could read it in my book, but I interview everyone involved with the story in the last 30, 40 years, no? And I think, it's the most complete research, but I prefer to do research in the field, but I call myself, and I prove it, I do exploration. Yeah, exploration and research on the field, no matter what kind of method you use, but beyond the common sense. But I found the second hope from Hall after his deception with Morix was a misfire. But that golden inscriptions I found is in the second case, what he said they were the real depository of the metal library. But the funny things, according to my records and my recollections, is not the right one. That was following the story of this military guy who also was exiled to the Orient in the 50s. Yeah, and accidentally or incidentally, he saved the life of one young Indian hero. And it's a typical legend. They say when you save the life of a person in extreme circumstances in the jungle, they brought you to El Dorado. And that was the legend really fulfilled itself. But this Indian group, they brought this corporal named Jaramillo to the same cave after Morix will be found 10 years later, no? 10 or 15 years later. And yeah, it's a difficult part in the story, but also I reconstruct that part. And yeah, it's a story of many. Unfortunately, most of the characters are dead, and dead they don't talk. Or sometimes you talk, no? Sometimes they talk through a medium sense, maybe, but
we might be able to arrange that.
Well, it's one of the chapters. You have to read that part. When I explore the remote viewing, I
was just going to say that.
I consult the top experts of the remote viewing and the war to see what is their opinion. And I didn't consult so many others, but there are many professional ones where they want to charge so much for analysis, and they don't guarantee they will find the El Dorado. Yeah. But in this case, El Dorado, the true. But first, in my search, I was trying to find if my friend Julio was telling me the truth, since I was a teenager, a kid. And so it was it's kind of the dream of childhood, no, the true legend, no, the true story. When you trust your best friend and tell you the true, nothing more than the true, no? That has been my idealistic drive, and I don't regret about my idealistic drive, no. Yes.
Alex, one of the interesting points that you bring up, and we find the same pattern all across the world. We've had Maria Wheatley as a guest. She's spoken about the ley lines found at Stonehenge and Avebury. But you bring up or incorporate the what you're calling the check lines that run parallel to each other across Central America, and that includes the Teos Caves. there's a connection
Yes.
with the Nazca lines and Lake Titicaca, and you mentioned that earlier, and that was I remember seeing that episode on Ancient Aliens with the Chief El Dorado painting himself in gold and swimming in the lake. Were you part of that consultant?
Yes.
Was that one of your episodes?
Yes, I designed mostly all Latin American segments for Ancient Aliens, for Prometheus, and during many years. Yes, more than 150 segments. Yeah, and I did that projection of the Nazca lines, which I studied for many years, and discovered new lines in Chile. And I feel the radials. The radials, they are not only departing from Nazca, they overlapping for the center of the empire, which is Cusco. And they have all these kind of projective lines going south, so to the south part of the Tahuantinsuyo. These lines, they cross Chile, they cross Bolivia, and they get to Argentina. But for example, between Chile and Bolivia in the desert, you'll find this line connected with geoglyph, with symbols and with drawings of animals and plants and circulars and geometrical things. So it's the Nazca lines, they don't finish in the pampas of Nazca and Palpa or Arequipa, but they continue to the east, to Brazil, and they continue south. But also this Kenke system, these radials not only connect with markings of water, but the water was very important, and it's important today as was 500 years ago, as 1,000 years ago, as a markers. But we have been debating if we are in front of representation of the heavens and the skies with an astronomical kind of mapping instead to be symbolic. But you have to really back in time to adapt the mind of the Aymaras, the Quichua Aymaras, and the pre-Incas to see their cosmovision. And we see it through the drawnness of our nature and ecological interpretation of the desert life, no? And the life of this part of the geography of the Andes is semi-arid and could be very arid, and as had been in today, couldn't be 1,000 years ago. No, I don't think the paleoclimate changed too much, but I don't follow the explanation of water reservoirs, but more in the mystical side of the radials. We don't know these lines, why they project. I think they project in the creation of sacred points, no? So more points connected with deities, connected with the spiritual world. No, and the spiritual world is also connected with the luminosity in the heavens and the skies, no? And every star have a different type of representation, no? And that is matching with the ceramics too, no? We have the Paracas, Nazca ceramics, and every place. And the strange thing is, they project south. But that projection, I think, is connected with the moving of the stars through the southern hemisphere, through the heavens. Yeah, the translation. Yeah, of the heavens. Yeah, the moving of the heavens more than elements of the ground. I think we have elements of the air and the night sky in this case. But it's still a big mystery. We cannot really explain. But connected with the Tajos, yes, the Tajos, the solstice and equinox illuminated the main cave. The Cuangos cave is kind of the cathedral. It's the Sixtine Chapel. It's the main one, who had been not only the bigger concentration of the old birds, but the places where really many ethnias, they pilgrimage to the area to harvest the birds and close this cycle. But, for example, the skeleton, the human remain was founded near the entrance, an entrance who is illuminated by the sun September 21st, and it's illuminated in March, and it's illuminated in the solstice of December. Just was below that ray of beam of light was found this skeleton, and he was escorted. He was surrounded by ceramics, advanced ceramics, an oil lamp, and a spondylus. The spondylus is this pink shell who also you only found in the Pacific coast. And it was a very precious element to have this really pink shell, but you have to retrieve diving deep in the coast, no? And they use it for decoration. That means this group, human group, follow kind of the light to the east, going to Amazon. And we know in the Amazonia between Ecuador and Brazil and going south, there were many groups, human groups, who built cities, but these cities were not in concrete, but were wood and straw. But they have a very advanced, sophisticated system of irrigation, and they are very old. I follow their works of Eddy, who was a friend and mentor of the Smithsonian, and she concluded the agriculture groups, agriculture's peoples from the last 3,000, 5,000 years between Brazil and Bolivia and Peru. They have very kind of advanced lines of build this kind of terraces, and including in areas where were marshes, create this kind of terrains with levels of advanced levels of harvesting and seeding. And that is when you go to the east, no? The east. And also, if you go to the coast of Ecuador, and don't forget, Ecuador is the half of the world. And when the French measure the equatorial line, what they found an ancient culture was already measured with perfection the half of the world. And you find these lines, these heckles, these kind of mounds. And also you found this pyramidal group, a kind of north, kind of half an hour north of the Ecuador. And this tumulus, this kind of pyramidal mounds, are aligning to the Ursus Major and Ursus Minor, who were also very light in the stars in the ancient and the contemporary heavens. And we don't know what they have, this kind of fixation to worship and have orientation of these gray mounds, sacred gray mounds, to these stars. But coming back to the half of the war, it's amazing how they already the pre-Incas and the Quituscaras, who was the group living in Quito area, they measure before the French, kind of 1,000 years before. How you explain that, we don't know. But, and if the Spaniards construct all the famous churches of the Jesuits covered by a lot of plates of gold too, taken from the mines and taken from the gold of the jungle and from the Potosi and the rest of the underground regions of the South Andes. But interesting, but these pyramidal constructions, so there are many along Quito, there are churches, but if you excavate below that, there are temples. And today, the architects, they construct the windows as also in the solstice and the equinox, the beam of light, they don't illuminate some kind of wall with astronomical observation, but they illuminate the religious statues. It's kind of very, very interesting kind of eschatology and a renovation of pagan rites and pagan details in the today worshipping of Christianity, no? But
yeah.
But yeah, that is another mystery. But Quito have many mountains and mountains who are really connected not only with the stars but also markers of the season of the year, solstice and equinox. Yeah, and secret mountains, secret hills. Yeah, and again, the line. Today we discovered the French. The La Condamine expedition was wrong, and the right half of the war is the old mark we find kind of 10, 20 degrees north of the French marker. How you explain that is impossible. And the Quituscaras looks like they were very advanced in mathematicians as the Mayans, but we are in the La mitad del mundo in this case. that is a subject. I talk briefly in the book. I don't go. I think in the continuation of Mystery of the Tajos Caves, I will go in detail about the secret geometry of the pre-Incas.
Yeah. Yeah, Alex, we're approaching like 10 minutes left, but you brought up all these mysteries, the theories, and we can get into the sacred geometry at some other point. But there is evidence, something that's persisting from this cave, and you do present that there are notarized government records. Doesn't that lend a little bit more credibility that this is documented in the government of Ecuador, that has been officially Morix's statements have been officially accepted by the Ecuadorian government?
Oh yes, Morix, after the release of the von Däniken bestseller, The God of the Gods, he decided to register as a notary public, but he was afraid he was going to lose his discovery, and with his lawyer they make an inventory what he saw with before Julio and after with Goyen Aguado in one of the caves of the system with so much detail, and but he never offered a final proof in his kind of personality debacle toward that deception he had the government in a second expedition, but the first 69, he's partnered with part of the tourist office, and the tourist office almost ignored him, and he decided on bring that to the chamber of the metal library. And after that, he closed himself, and he have another deception with von Däniken. Von Däniken used him, and he never delivered the financing of the expedition. He was requiring, I remember, $200,000, which he never showed. And von Däniken sold more than 20 million copies of that book, believe it or not. And he didn't give anything. But to Morix and his lawyer, no matter he defend himself, saying he want to have more proof, but in some level the story twist itself, and we have a big gaps there in that story. But yeah, the Ecuadorian government was looking for more proof, and Morris have a nemesis named Hernan Crespo, who was director of the research for the Central Bank and part of the UNESCO, and he didn't believe neither in Morix or in Däniken. And that created another big kind of stress in the life of Morix and in other people who were trying to bring that archaeological collection to the surface. And they said, where is that? In what? And no, he decided to protect it. Yeah. And he brought that secret to the grave. Both, they brought the secret, but him and Julio, they have a pact of silence, and they keep it to the final moments. And it's a kind of it was the first time in history when discoverer make a notary registration, public notary, thinking with that we will protect it, but nobody gave the guarantee. All the people, including the Stanley Hall, he didn't really want to follow what Morix was asking, and that was neutrality of the discovery. And his neutrality of discovery was kind of to protect it, from the looting. But he couldn't escape from the looting neither when he lost the discovery of the longest mine in the Andes, no? The story of Combarazza and Ambija is also part of one of the chapters, the final chapters of my book.
Alex, we have about 5 minutes left. We can give you time to tell people where they can get your book, or if you want to plug anything. You had a great lecture at the Explorers Club that you put out on social media last week. Do you have any other public lectures coming up?
No, at the moment, no. I think the presentation of my book was in the Explorers Club, and I give that master lecture. I talked before, 2015, what I give also a master official lecture on all the story and all my research and through the point of view of an explorer, But I explore the natural world. I talk about the natural wonders of these caves and the animals and the flora and fauna, not only about the archaeological side, Saying the people are more intriguing in the metal library and the Neil Armstrong. but also this cave is a marvelous ecosystem, no? And it's not well known. Unfortunately, the stupid people in television, they really believe what I was talking years ago when I was trying to do it with National Geographic or the Smithsonian. They didn't really believe in my in my call. Now when I show the pictures, they start to believe it. Yeah, but I don't know if they will continue ignoring me. This development kind of executives who they don't see beyond their noses. And yeah, you could order the book, the Inner Traditions website, their company also, and Barnes and Noble website, and Amazon, and it's Simon & Schuster is releasing the book in the UK and Canada. It's a distributor of my book, and the book is almost sold out. I think it's having a big sale and interesting. What is a new subject on the mysteries, and I think the people want to know more about. And this is so many stories and so many other elements. We don't talk about interpretation of the metal scrolls of the apocryphal ones, the one found in the Crespi collection. They're very interesting, but also there are more in other areas of Ecuador who are part of Phoenician, Sumerian, very ancient cultures when they come to the Americas, and they left this kind of legacy of that is interesting. Plus, also, we have very advanced scriptures in the Valdivia area. I call it Valdivia plates, and in my book I talk about other findings of libraries. The metal libraries that are all over in the Andes, that connected also with the plateau of Marcahuasi, which is a subject I researched for so many years too, and connect with this lost knowledge. Marcahuasi is important. I did a segment for also ancient aliens, and I put the place in the map, and that connect with the mystery of elongated skulls too, what I found it in some of my trips, but I left it there as the archaeologists they could continue doing the official work of classification. I open new trail blazing, and you could invite me next time, and I talk about my other expeditions in the maps.
Yeah, we'll do that. This is terrific, and your book does cover enchanting information. Folklore. I'm a big folklore fan, and the very real possibilities of trans-Pacific and trans-Atlantic crossings. This is cutting-edge material. I really enjoyed your book, and hopefully can get you outselling Von Daniken's book. And
I don't think it's going to happen, but it's okay. If I decide to tell the truth and nothing more than the truth.
You did an excellent job, and we're just about. Barbara's telling me we're just about out of time. How about we have you come back again sometime soon? And Barbara, you want to step in and wrap it up?
Okay.
Sure will. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and enjoying this amazing, amazing lecture. And certainly we all look forward to having him back again. So don't forget to tune in Monday night. That's going to be free readings. And then next year we start in on again all over again. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks so much, everybody, and good night.